Hello, Apostle Jeremy Scott Gibbs. This is your Heartland Fellowship, your HFTC update and encouragement for the final week of March. We're heading into obviously the Easter week, and we've already started that, going through that. This coming weekend will be have Easter Sunday on it. So last week was Palm Sunday, and so we don't do a whole lot at Heartland Fellowship as far as anything special for the Easter celebrations. We kind of it's kind of my personal take. I kind of take every day as the same. Not that we don't participate with other people and get involved with what they're doing. We'll be traveling down this week and hang out with the Better Covenant Church, where Apostle Smith, my spiritual father, is at, and hang out with him for the Good Friday service. But at Heartland Fellowship, we just kind of do service as normal. Just just a preference of mine, and the Lord has never led me in a different direction. If the Lord leads me to do a different thing, one of the jokes we have with Heartland Fellowship with my people a lot of times is I'll say whatever holiday is coming up, whether it be Christmas or there was one Mother's Day where I said I'm going to do my traditional Mother's Day message, and all of my traditional messages, if I'm teaching on a particular holiday, are to traditionally do exactly what the Spirit of God is telling me to do. And it just so happened one Mother's Day, the Lord woke me up and said, I want you to talk about mothers today. And it was a really great service. But normally we just do whatever the Lord's leading us to do, and there's nothing wrong with regarding certain holidays to honor the Lord with. I think some people get caught up in there's some ideas out there, definitely well founded, that a lot of the celebrations we have in the church today have pagan roots, where the church has adopted pagan ideas and pagan celebrations, the equinox and different things like that, and even Christmas and stuff, to try to incorporate the pagans into the church and make them feel, hey, I've got something that I can still look to that's similar to where I was coming from. And there's some truth in that, definitely, that we've adopted some practices and habits. But, it comes down to a place of, does it help or hurt relationship? Does it really hinder the overall experience? Now, I'm not going to, promote Santa Claus and go all crazy about Christmas. And there's a lot of people that talk about, can you say Christmas on Christmas, because they like to shorten it down and say Xmas or Happy Holidays and stuff like that, and kind of they talk about, well, they're taking the Christ out of Christmas. Well, Christ was injected into Christmas anyways, because by all accounts Jesus was born in the summer sometime. We don't know exactly when he was born. I think that's on purpose, that the Lord has kept that from being something out there, because everything that we do, we tend to follow the Israelite model, and we make a monument out of it. We make we set up an altar to these things, and then we go and we worship at the altar instead of worshiping the God of the event. We worship we set up an altar to commemorate the event, and then we forget about the God who we're supposed to have a relationship with. So whatever you believe about those things, as Paul wrote, he said, whatever things you believe about these things, keep between yourself and God. Blessed is the man who does not condemn himself by what he approves. And so, with Heartland Fellowship, we don't go down that road a lot of, certainly we want to honor people and bless people, and we don't shy away from the celebrations. And it is an opportunity. Christmas and Easter is one of the two times of the year where people that don't traditionally go to church end up coming. So we want to be prepared to receive them, and a lot of them are looking for some type of experience along that lines, and we want to be sensitive to that. But at the same time, we're not a seeker-sensitive body. We're going to be spirit-sensitive and do what the Lord's telling us to do. So again, just whatever you believe about those things. We've adopted a ton of things in the church, and then people want to get on crusades, and I think it goes back to this. Well, I know it goes back to this. The foundation of the Christian church today is rooted in this Protestant movement. We call it Protestant. There's really no D in it, and we say it quickly, and it sounds like there's a D, Protestant. Well, really, it's Protestant. When Martin Luther came and posted his 99-page thesis or 99 thesis, the articles, on the door of the church, the Catholic Church, opposing what was going on, he really was protesting what was going on. And from that time, we have to realize that our origin, our roots have been in that. I don't associate myself, generally other people would associate me with the Protestant movement, certainly. And we're part of the spirit-filled wing of the Protestant movement. But it's from the aspect of, what is our foundation? My foundation is not to protest. And so what you find in a lot of denominations is they have something they want to protest, and it comes from that Protestant root. And I think it's very important that we move away from that root and we say, you know what, I'm not Protestant or Catholic, or I just love Christ. I'm in a depth of relationship, and whatever doctrines that I hold on to help me pursue that relationship. Some of them I'm going to share, some of them I'm not going to share. Some are personal. And one of the things I like to say, and my spiritual father likes to say, and a number of other ministers around me, is don't make a doctrine out of this. This is something that helps me. This is something that builds me up, but don't make a doctrine out of it. Too many times we want to get a hold of something and then make a doctrine out of it. We want to make a rock solid, this is the way it has to be. Well, it's not the way it has to be. Your life is different than my life, and what you're going through is different from what I'm going through. And so there's a tendency, because we like to systematize stuff. We like to put things into a systematic plan of how to do stuff, but you can't live your life like that. You can certainly have structure. But anytime you systematize something, you lose the organic nature of it. And if you've tuned into anything that I've said, these updates or other videos that we have on YouTube, you've heard me say that before. Because anytime we take this depth of relationship with the Lord and we make it into a system, we lose that relationship eventually. One of the scriptures Paul writes, and he says they've lost connection with the head. Well, if they lost connection, that means at some point they were connected. He even says they've been puffed up with idle notions and they've lost connection with the head. So at one point they were connected, and then they lost that connection. Well, there's a lot of people that came in and have been in the church that have had genuine connections with the Lord, but then puffed up with idle notions, got into a system. I'm going to do any. You can ask anybody who's has a successful marriage. You can't systematize it. You can't. You have to know the person. You have to relate to the person. You have to really be involved. It's just a depth of relationship makes all the difference. And whenever you try to say, well, here's the rules that I need you to do as my husband, and here's the rules that I need you to do as my wife, the minute you start to do that, you know that the relationship's already on the decline, because you're setting up a legal system. And the children of Israel should be absolutely the example for us, that whenever you set up a legal system to try to maintain a faith relationship or just a relationship in general, you're going to lose it. They said, Moses, we don't want to hear God's freaking us out. He was up on the mountain, and they said, we don't want to hear God for ourselves. You go and listen to God and then come back and tell us what he said, and we'll do that. And as a result, they lost that connection, and they kept having to go into captivity and then be delivered, and then they would renew that relationship with the Lord, and then they would go into captivity. The rules and the laws are there for it. Paul wrote it very clearly. Jesus talked about it too. But he says laws are not written for the righteous. They're written for the lawless. So if you have to have a set of rules and laws to operate your relationship, it means that you're operating from a place of lawlessness. Because Jesus said clearly that everything in a love relationship will supersede any type of rules you can come up with. If you love the Lord, he said, you will fulfill all the law and the commandments in these two. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. So we get so caught up in wanting to systematize things and make things so accurate. And again, we're talking about Easter and that coming up and that holiday, and people, they say, well, is it exactly when it was, and when's the Feast of Pentecost and the resurrection, and they get into all these different ideas. And Paul said, one man regards one day more sacred than another. Another man considers all days equal. Well, so find out where you're at and then operate. And again, as Paul wrote in another place, and he said, so whatever you believe about these things, keep between yourself and God. Blessed is the man who does not condemn himself by what he approves. I like to honor people that I'm not a big Christmas person. I don't do a lot of celebration, but I do love to give gifts to people, and I do that throughout the year. And I do love to honor other people for their for what they hold dear. So if I find somebody that's really into celebrating Christmas and they're doing it at heart to honor Christ, then I'm not going to fall in the camp on one side that says Christmas is just, this is a pagan holiday and it's all commercialism. And there's truth in that. I'm not denying that in any way. But I'm not worried about the paganism and the commercialism. I'm concerned with the person that I love, that I want to honor them for something that they find sacred, that they find dear to them. And that's the more important thing. So as we move into Easter, I'm not into celebrating a lot of the things because I celebrate the resurrection of Christ on a daily basis. So for me, it comes down to I'm going to see what other people around me find interesting, and then I'm going to love on them. And I believe that's the heart of God, is that the Lord looks to see what, he delights in us, and he looks to give us. It says delight yourself in the Lord, for He will give you the desires of your heart. So are we doing that? Are we delighting ourselves in the Lord so that He can give us the desires of our heart? Because He's going to give us the desire of our heart whether we are delighting ourselves or not. Read, Romans chapter 1 and chapter 2, where it talks about that since they didn't even want to retain the knowledge of God, He took away the knowledge of Him and gave them over to a reprobate mind to do what ought not to be done. In fact, he says that Paul's writing there, and he said that since it did not enter into the mind of God to do what they did. And I think that's that's a whole other topic, that it didn't enter into God's mind to do what they did. And obviously we look at it and say, well, it was wickedness, so it didn't enter into God's mind. But He's aware of everything. So anyways, just that idea. I want to encourage everybody as you're going into this holiday weekend and celebrating different things, however you celebrate, whether you don't celebrate much or you celebrate a lot. We're going to obviously draw attention to Easter, and we're going to have some people around us. We're going to do a nice Easter dinner on Saturday with the family, and then have a nice service on Sunday. But whatever you do about that, honor the Lord in it and honor the people around you. I think the number one thing we can do is just love and honor the people around us. It'll change lives. It'll change hearts. It'll change mindsets if we can just love on people and honor people where they're at. That's in Romans, later chapters in Romans 14 and 15, where Paul talks about, he says, bear with the failings of the weak, not to please yourself, but to build them up for their good. When will we do that? We think of bearing with the failings of the weak, and we automatically gravitate towards sin. Well, you know what? The whole chapter is talking about if one has weak faith, and it literally, that idea there in the Greek really means sick faith. And we don't want to characterize it like that, because then it comes off as a negative, but it's really that idea. If your faith is weak and you only eat vegetables, and someone else has strong faith and they eat whatever they want, the one who doesn't eat meat shouldn't condemn the one who does, and the one who does eat meat shouldn't condemn the one who doesn't. And it's just this honor level that we need to have for each other as brothers and sisters in Christ. Again, Jesus said, by this will all men know that you belong to me, if you have love for one another. We need to get back to that. We need to stop being a Protestant movement. We need to stop being factioned into denominations and everything. We need to come together, find some common ground, and that number one common ground is loving Christ and loving each other. We need to find that common ground, be willing to humble ourselves enough to set aside whatever strong beliefs. I have strong beliefs. Believe me. Listen, when I'm talking about things and I say that, don't build a doctrine on this, understand that that's coming from a place of a man who has had some very deep encounters with the Lord, some deep revelations with the Lord, and some things that I believe very strongly. But I don't let those strong beliefs. In fact, that's a number one thing, as the Lord has said to me, is, son, don't let the revelations that I've given you, don't let the things that I've built you up in supersede loving somebody in a relationship. Because they're not. There's so many times I go into a situation and the Lord tempers me and He says, they're not where you're at. They haven't received you. Paul talked about it, and he said to keep him humble, there was a thorn given to him in his flesh to keep him humble because of the exceedingly great revelation. That's a challenge for leaders. There are multiple leaders throughout the earth that have received deep revelation, and they have to temper themselves when they approach people of, you know what, I've got to love you where you're at, not love you from where my mindset is. Jesus said that too in John chapter 15 and 16, even 17. He said, I have much more to say to you, more than you can now bear, but the Spirit of God will lead you into all truth and remind you of what I've said to you. He said, I got a ton of stuff I want to share with you, but you can't handle it. So we as leaders, and I'm speaking of leaders right now, obviously, we've got to be sensitive and tempered in how we approach things, because we can do more damage. I'd rather leave somebody in a church that has a lot of doctrinal error but is loving than be a crusader and walk in there and try and drag them out and think that I'm doing a great work. Jesus said, a smoldering wick I won't snuff out, and a bruised reed I won't break. That's very important, that we operate from a place of our love walk first, and then maybe we get to our doctrines. I only want to give somebody a teaching. That's what doctrine means. I only want to give somebody a teaching or a doctrine if it liberates them into a deeper relationship with Christ. Just giving them head knowledge, that just puffs them up. Love builds up. Knowledge puffs up. So this has been your HFTC update and encouragement for the final week of March. I'm Apostle Jeremy Scott Gibbs. I just want to say God bless you. I look forward to new things coming up. We are getting ready for so many things. We're going to be in New Orleans, joining Jesse Duplantis with the conference they have down there for the second week of April. Third week of April, I'll be doing a men's conference in New Jersey, being one of the keynote speakers along with my spiritual father, Apostle Smith. And then we have some other things coming up for those of you that are local. We're going to do a Tuesday night, what we call a breakout service, and the focus of the breakout service is healing relationships. That's going to be April 21st. So I'm going to start putting up more and more information on Facebook and some other places so that people are aware of that, and that'll be local here. And then we're going to start branching those out around the area. So there we have it. God bless.